We are counting down what I have ranked as the 10 best SummerSlam matches of all time. This week we are at number 9 on the list. This next match is one that I know some of you are going to agree with. Some of you may think it's not ranked high enough. And a lot of you may think it doesn't belong on here at all. That the match doesn't have any replay value. And that may be true. Although I went back and I watched it and I enjoyed it every bit as much as I did the first time I saw it. It's not a technical masterpiece. It has a lot of dead time, frankly, between spots, but it was still exciting because it was unlike anything we had ever seen before in a pay-per-view main event, especially one involving John Cena, Super Cena, as many looked at him at the time, WWE's top star for almost a decade by the time this match took place. That being John Cena, defending the WWE World Heavyweight Championship against the man who only months earlier ended The Undertaker's streak at WrestleMania. Of course, I'm talking about Brock Lesnar. Cena versus Lesnar from SummerSlam 2014 clocks in at number 9 here in this list of the greatest matches in SummerSlam history. So let's give some background first. What led to this? Brock Lesnar was gone from WWE for a very long time. In fact, he was gone for almost a decade, 8 years. And in 2012, after WrestleMania that year, he reemerged. And his very first feud, his very first target from the night he came back, the very first match he had, was against John Cena, an old foe from the Ruthless Aggression era, from that 2002-2003 period of WWE. They had at least one pay-per-view match back then. I think it was at Backlash. So they had some history together. And there's always been the question, some of people have emailed me for the mailbag, what would have happened if Brock never left? Would John Cena have ascended to the heights he did and become as big as he did if Brock Lesnar would have stuck around? It's one of those what-if questions where you can't say for sure. I think Cena would have been just fine. But their careers were definitely linked in the past. So they had that match at Extreme Rules in 2012. It was, I think, a non-sanctioned match, and it was a pay-per-view main event unlike anything we had ever seen before. It was just a brutal fight where Lesnar is raining elbows down on this guy right from the opening bell. He cuts him open. We've seen him do this with Randy Orton since and other people. Cena's all bloody. Again, something that we're not used to seeing, not back at that time anyway, in WWE. Blade jobs, or in this case, it wasn't a blade job. I mean, he cut him open hard way, but, it was unique to see blood pouring from someone's head in a WWE match. And Lesnar just destroyed this guy for the 10 or 12 minutes, however long it lasted. He destroyed this guy. And in the end, John Cena beat Brock Lesnar, which is a decision that still to this day makes me scratch my head. Especially when you go on to see what they did with Lesnar. They were able to redeem this guy to a point where he was looked at as this unbeatable monster, even though he came right in and lost in his first match to John Cena, which made no sense. And for a long time, I thought to myself, there's got to be some revenge here for what happened. Little did I know that 2 years later, 2.5 years later, Lesnar would avenge that loss in a very decisive way. But I thought that Extreme Rules match, even though I thought the finish sucked, I thought that was maybe the match of the year for WWE in 2012. I just really loved that match. Had me on the edge of my seat. Different than your typical WWE main event. Fast forward to 2014. Brock Lesnar, after feuding with a whole bunch of different people, including Triple H, and they traded wins back and forth. Lesnar wrestles The Undertaker at WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans. Undertaker did not look good in the match, in part because he was concussed very early on. He was dropped on his head outside the ring. And they just had a shitty match. It was a terribly plodding, slow, boring match. It was the first truly bad match that Undertaker had at WrestleMania in many, many years. You'd have to go back a long way to find a WrestleMania match as boring and dull and bad as the one that he had with Brock at WrestleMania 30. He had a great match with Punk. He had a great series of matches with Shawn Michaels, a great series of matches with Triple H, the match with Edge, the match with Batista, which was better than I think a lot of people expected it to be. I guess you'd have to go back maybe to the casket match with Mark Henry at WrestleMania 22. And this was probably worse than that. But Nobody cares the quality of the match. Nobody's going to look back years from now, oh, they had a bad match. Nobody's going to give a shit about that because of the finish, which was Brock Lesnar pinning The Undertaker and handing him his very first loss at WrestleMania. Again, a decision that I think was the wrong decision. I disagree with it to this day. But they had to do something coming out of that show to keep this guy strong because they broke the streak. You're not going to have Brock Lesnar break the streak and then job him out. So, they decided to send this guy on a tear and just destroy everybody that he was in the ring with, win the championship, and book him as strong as anybody that they have ever booked in the history of that company, is the way they booked Brock Lesnar coming out of that WrestleMania in 2014. They did not waste the streak, even though they, you could disagree in breaking it, but they didn't waste his win over The Undertaker. Daniel Bryan, at that same WrestleMania show, it was the culmination of this great, anti-authority story, this underdog story, and he wins the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. 2 belts. We had 2 belts at the time. And he won both belts to close out the show, the big confetti bath. It was this great moment, one of the greatest endings to WrestleMania in a very long time. Unfortunately, that's where the storybook, or the storybook chapter of this part of his career came to an end. It all fell apart for him after. He got hurt. Connor passed away. He was very close to Connor, and now they have Connor's cure. His father died unexpectedly. It was a horrible, horrible time, even though I think he had just gotten married. A horrible time personally for Daniel Bryan and professionally, because now he had neck problems. He had to have neck surgery, and he had to forfeit the championship. So he forfeits the title. The title is vacant. Vacant has more reigns than anybody in wrestling history. And John Cena wins the championship in a Money in the Bank ladder match. His 15th World Championship. John Cena is champion again. But his reign would be short-lived. I do believe, and this has never been confirmed, but I do believe that Daniel Bryan, had he not gotten hurt, he would have been the one falling victim to Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam that year. I believe the plan all along was to have Lesnar go in there and destroy the champion, lay waste to the champion, and if it wasn't Cena, it was going to be Bryan in that spot. He was going to be the victim of a massacre at SummerSlam. It was originally meant for him. I believe that. And he was spared by his neck injury. And the reaction to this match, I think, would have been very, very different if it were Daniel Bryan on the receiving end of those 16 German suplexes in a very one-sided affair, and not John Cena, who the fans love to hate and love to boo. The fans loved Daniel Bryan. Him getting crushed in this match the way that Cena did would have made them angry. And would have made Brock Lesnar, I think, the most hated man in wrestling. This is the greatest squash match in WWE history. Cena got some offense in. He had a flurry of offense here, a flurry of offense there, just to keep the people interested, keep them on their toes, make them think that, he could bust out a win out of nowhere. But, the offense he got, nothing like you would expect in a World Championship pay-per-view main event. This was a main event murder here on this pay-per-view. I thought that the opening was great. Cena goes right after Lesnar as soon as the bell rings. Cena's in one corner. Brock's in the other corner. Paul Heyman's doing his thing outside the ring. Big fight feel to it. Crowd damped up. Bell rings. Cena charges in at Brock Lesnar. They start rolling around on the mat. Lesnar's laying blows into his ribs. All of a sudden, Lesnar hoists him up onto his shoulders, hits an F5. When you watch him hit the F5, the first 5 rows, the people leap to their feet because they think, holy shit, it's over. Now that would have been an interesting way to end that match. Cena kicks out. Brock cracks a smile. After the first F5 kick out, he stands up over Cena and he's just trash talking Cena. That was your chance, John. That was your chance to get out of this unscathed. He goes, I'm gonna kill you. It's like Sid talking to Hogan after the Rumble in 92. If you watch before they cut away to the back, he goes, I'll kill you. So he tells Cena he's gonna kill him. And what follows is a combination for the next, 15 minutes or so of suplexes and knee strikes to the ribs. The year before Brock uttered the word Suplex City, bitch, at WrestleMania in Santa Clara, WrestleMania 31, Suplex City was not born at WrestleMania. Suplex City was born here at SummerSlam. 16 German suplexes. 17 total suplexes. There was a regular one thrown in there too, just for good measure. So technically it was 17 suplexes, but 16 Germans. Cena fights back. He had this great flurry of offense here in the middle. Brock's going for another German. Cena back elbows his way out of it. And the people are behind him. The people are actually cheering for Cena. They're behind him. Cena hits the ropes. He takes Brock down to a knee with a shot, a right hand to the face. Hits the ropes again, another shot. Hits the ropes again, and Lesnar scoops him up. Hits an F5, or goes to hit an F5. Doesn't actually hit it. But scoops him up for the F5. Place comes alive. Cena slips out. Hoists Brock up for an AA. Hits the attitude adjustment. Gets a very near fall. People are losing their minds at this point. So, again, it goes to what I was saying before. Yes, there is a lot of dead time in this match of Brock just standing around and sweating and waiting for Cena to get up, hits another suplex, stands around, waits, hits another suplex. I could see where people would watch that and go, man, that's fucking boring. But it worked. The people were into it. They weren't chanting boring. They weren't sitting on their hands. Every time Cena got a little bit of hope and a little bit of offense in, they would rise to their feet and lose their minds. Whoever put this match together and booked this match could not have done a better job at it. So now Cena's down in the corner. Lesnar's down. He mocks The Undertaker with the zombie sit-up. And he's laughing at Cena. I actually hated the fact that they were showing a replay at the time because they love their fucking replays. So we almost missed the entire zombie sit-up and Brock laughing. They put the camera on Brock just as he was about to get back up to his feet. Thankfully, they showed a replay. They showed a replay of the zombie sit-up because the camera people, the people in the truck, almost missed it. But that was a great moment. That's just Brock Lesnar trolling people. Playing off the Undertaker win, which pissed a lot of people off. Now he's mocking the guy. Cena gets Brock later on, after many more suplexes, which frankly got uncomfortable. There were some suplexes that he folded Cena up like a friggin' accordion. Cena had neck surgery many years earlier. So he's had neck problems before, and you watch him just get folded up on some of these suplexes. It was uncomfortable to watch by number 13, 14, 15. Cena gets Brock into desperation STF, gets him down. And, of course, Lesnar they're trying to tease that. Is Lesnar going to tap? Is Lesnar going to tap? I mean, as if. Lesnar rolls through. He's raining blows down upon John Cena. He picks him up for an F5, hits the F5, and pins Cena clean in the middle to win the championship. And for the first time in over 10 years, over a decade, since dropping the title to Eddie Guerrero in that great match at No Way Out, Brock Lesnar is a world champion in WWE. And I love the shot of Brock. The camera followed him as soon as he got right up to his feet when the match was over and the place exploded. And the camera zoomed in on his face. He had this look on his face like, whoa, holy shit. They showed some people in the crowd. This one guy had his hands over his mouth. He was in a state of shock. He kind of looked like Sacha Baron Cohen, although I don't think it was him. They showed the reactions of some of the other audience members. You know, Paul Heyman comes in. He's bowing to Brock, and he hands him both belts. JBL says that was the most dominant performance in a championship match that I've ever seen in my life. Michael Cole says it wasn't even close. So it's like the opposite of what they did, like when Cena lost to The Rock at WrestleMania the first time in Miami, right? Rock pinned him. Cena was being fancy. He went for the people's elbow. He got caught in a rock bottom and he got pinned. And so yes, it was a very competitive match. But you could tell they wanted Michael Cole to make it very clear on commentary that, well, Cena didn't really lose to The Rock so much as he sort of beat himself. And he made a comment at one point about how I don't even know that there was a winner and a loser here. I'm like, yeah, there was. The Rock won and John Cena lost, you fucking idiot. Such a stupid line. There was no ambiguity about this. There was no debate here. He made it very clear. It wasn't even close. It was clear they instructed the announcers to just sell the shock of it and make it very clear that Brock Lesnar was as dominant as anybody has ever been in a title match in the history of this company. This was ballsy. on WWE's part to book the match the way they did. It was different at the time. It was fresh. Maybe not so fresh when you go back and watch it now with Brock having done suplexes in every single match since. But it was decisive. No 50-50, no even Steven. Hey, it's anyone's ball game. No. Ball game was over from the first inning, like a Mets game. It was very clear who the dominant force was in this match, and it was not John Cena. It was like Doomsday beating Superman to death in the comics. I think I even said that at the time when I did the review. That's what it reminded me of. It was like Doomsday killing Superman. And like Superman, Cena came back too, but in some ways it felt like the death of Super Cena. Not completely, I know, but it was the first time that we ever saw John Cena or any top star like him. Can you imagine Stone Cold or Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels or Hogan or Savage or anybody in their prime at their peak being manhandled like this by somebody else? You know, for all the giants that Hogan used to face back in the day, I mean, they brought in Zeus and they had Andre and Bundy and Stud and they did injury angles and stuff. But there was nobody, no babyface in the history of this company has ever gone into a match and been manhandled and just booked to be slaughtered in the way that John Cena was here. John Cena did business. They were trying to get Brock Lesnar over and capitalize on the streak. And you know what? I didn't agree with them breaking the streak, but if you were going to break the streak, they made the most of it. One fun little exercise is to hop on the YouTube machine and scan for Cena-Lesnar reaction videos to this match and just watch some of the genuine real-time reactions that people had to the match and to the finish of the match. They were convinced in some cases, there's no way the match is going to end like that. And then when it did, they were pretty surprised. And in some cases, they thought it sucked. And in other cases, probably the Cena haters, they loved it. So the reaction was, I think overall, I remember this getting a pretty positive reaction, but it was still very mixed. You either really, really hated that match and really, really hated that finish, or I think you just absolutely fell in love with it and thought it was the match of the year. Or one of the matches of the year. So I tend to fall in the camp of this match on its own, when you watch it and appreciate it for what it is incredible. And they went on to book Brock like a absolute beast, which is why they call him the Beast, I guess. And he dropped the championship at WrestleMania, but he was never pinned for it, right? Seth Rollins pinned Roman Reigns, cashed in Money in the Bank. They kept Brock strong for a long time. You could argue they kept Brock strong really for the next, 5 years. Probably at the expense of their roster. You do get to a point where at some point, he's got to give a little bit back here. And they probably went with Brock as the hot hand in that role, the absentee champion for far too long, to where it started to do real damage, I think, to the company. He still has value, but at some point, he's beaten everybody there is to beat. What are you doing? What are you doing to your roster here? So yeah, like the NWO was a great concept at the beginning, but by year 2, 3, 4, you've run it into the ground, you've added all these people, you've destroyed what at one time was this great concept. But in the early days of kind of this monster wrecking machine that Brock Lesnar was built to be, it was great.